Finally, a moment of peace. It had been a busy Christmas Eve and an even busier Advent season. It's wonderful to have most of your family in one place, but it's also exhausting. That's how you found yourself in the sanctuary of your barn. It's a cold night, and all the animals are tucked into their stalls. The overall feeling of calm penetrates your soul. It's so late, almost midnight to be exact, and you are so tired. But these few moments of calm, they're worth it. Just a few more minutes, now it's midnight. It's Christmas Day, and you take one more moment to reflect in the silence before getting up to leave the barn and head back to your house when the silence is broken. You might be a little more exhausted than you thought. It almost sounded like the horses were talking to each other. Then you hear it again. It definitely sounds like speech. Ignoring the dread pooling in your stomach, your curiosity takes over, and you softly walk closer to the sound of speech. I'm Bree.
And I'm Christiana.
Stay away from the barn at midnight on Christmas, because
you're about to hear something strange.
Welcome to episode 6, The Friendly Beasts. All right.
That was fun.
Yes.
As soon as you were, out in the barn, I was like, oh!
As you guys can probably tell, this is our holiday episode. So, happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year's, solstice.
Have a great day if you don't celebrate anything.
Enjoy the time off work unless you work retail.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Or in a restaurant.
In which case, may the odds be ever in your favor.
So, have you heard any of the story or folklore of animals speaking on Christmas Eve?
So, I know of it from Annabelle's Wish, the movie, but I don't know, I thought that was just like the movie. I didn't know there was actually folklore behind it.
There is, and I will say, the research for this episode was a wild ride.
Oh gosh, okay.
So, when I say, thinking about animals talking on Christmas Eve, do you expect this to be a heartwarming episode or a scary one?
I see whimsy.
That's what I thought too.
Oh dear.
More on that later.
Oh god.
So, Annabelle's Wish.
Yeah.
How old is that movie for some of our younger listeners, if we have listeners?
Oh man. I've been listening to that movie for listening
with your eyes.
Listening with my eyes. I've been watching that movie for as long as I can remember. And I don't mind people knowing this, I'm 30 years old. 30. I'm 30, guys. God.
So I'm thinking it probably came out in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
'Tis elderly.
It's about a cow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
okay.
a cow, and she wants to be a reindeer.
That's right, okay.
She's pure.
That's right. Okay.
Makes you cry. It's okay.
It's a good movie. Check it out. I haven't seen it in probably 15, 20 years.
I have it on VHS if you would like to see it.
So I'm going to shout out my sources. There was a Mental Floss article, Talk is Sheep. I like that.
Talk is sheep.
Behind the Christmas Eve myth that animals speak at midnight. As always, Wikipedia. And this was on a movie called The Night the Animals Talked.
Oh.
I watched it. It was a Christmas special. I'll get into it a little bit.
Okay.
The Krakow Post. So it was translated from Polish to English because I don't read Polish.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Or speak it, for that matter. And Lancaster Farming News. All right.
Love it.
All right, so let's kind of get into the story, the legend itself.
Yes.
About animals speaking on Christmas Eve. And just a disclaimer, I know about this from the Christian perspective. I have no clue if other religions have something similar at a different time of year.
Right.
If anyone does know, please comment on Spotify or send us an email and tell us about it.
Yeah, that'd be fun to hear more about the different perspectives.
Exactly. All right, so I'm just going to give a little bit of the gist. It is that animals are gifted with the ability to speak on Christmas Eve at midnight via the Lancaster farmer. So the idea is that God gave all the animals in the stable the ability to speak, and they began praising God for the miracle of Jesus' birth. It's specifically talking about, if you are not familiar with the Christmas story, I'm going to give a quick recap. For those of you that didn't listen to our other podcast, I have an undergrad degree in religious studies, but it's been a hot minute since I've taken any classes in that realm. So the nativity story is that Jesus, who is like the main character,
The main Jesus and the boys.
Jesus and the boys. That was from the other podcast.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. The main person in Christianity,
yes,
was born in a stable in Bethlehem. There is a whole biblical explanation for that we're not going to go into right now because this is not a Bible story episode. I do have some of Bible character figure ones on my list, but so Jesus is like the Messiah in Christianity.
Yeah.
He was born in the town of Bethlehem. It is celebrated on December 25th, but it's very likely he was not born on December 25th.
Yeah.
Whole nother.
Again, we don't even need to go there, but yes.
But anyways, the story is that he had to go to Bethlehem because
it was a census, I think.
Yeah. And I guess you would call Joseph his stepfather.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I was like, wait, what?
Because the idea is that, like, he was born from Mary, but, like, there was no father.
Right. She was the Virgin Mary.
I am not saying this in order.
He's okay.
Joseph's family was from the line of David, which was, like, a big, big figure in the Old Testament. And they had to go to Bethlehem for a census, which probably didn't exist, but we're not going to get into that.
Right. And Mary was pregnant at this point.
Bethlehem exists. The census probably didn't, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, Bethlehem we know existed.
Yes.
There's debate on if the census was real.
Right.
But so Mary was pregnant and they got to Bethlehem and it's like very crowded because of the census and people having to register. And the only place they could go was a barn. So Jesus was born in a stable.
Right.
Hence why there are animals all around.
Yes.
Back to the Lancaster Farmer article. Supposedly, the gift of speech given to the animals continued until just before the arrival of the shepherds. So we're going to jump back to the nativity story, the Christmas story.
Okay.
So Jesus is born. And there's angels, and they're all excited because the Messiah is born. And they find the shepherds. They're like, hey, there is a baby that is, like, godly. Go look at it.
Go look at it.
That's literally, that's like basically what happened.
I love it.
So the animals spoke just until the shepherds arrived. And could you imagine, like, they're like, oh, crap, those are, like, animal professionals. We're not going to talk anymore.
I'm like, no.
The stories about the animals talking can kind of vary. As we said earlier, they can vary from being really, really sweet to downright terrifying.
Oh, God. Okay.
It appears that the legend probably originated in Europe. And from what I understand, it includes all types of animals.
Okay.
But most of the stories really center on pets and farm animals.
Okay.
That makes sense, though, because
if the legend came from Christianity, that's what would have been around.
Well, that's what the people would have been around.
That's true, just in general.
You know, let's do a suspension of disbelief for a second here. Let's say animals actually can speak on midnight of Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
You're more likely to hear your dog or cat talk or your cow talk than you are to hear, like,
a wolf or a owl.
How terrifying would that be? You look at your window, there's a wolf talking to you.
I'd be like, that's Professor Lupin.
It's a werewolf. But it kind of just makes sense because that's what the people would have been around. Ideas on where this might have originated. There was a belief that the ox and the donkey bowed down when Jesus was born. Side note, I did go back in the Bible and read the nativity narrative, which mostly comes from the book of Luke, if not completely. That's a New Testament. It's one of the 4 Gospels. Very close to the beginning of the New Testament.
Right.
Third from the beginning, actually. It didn't happen.
Right.
As we talked about in our other podcast, there's a lot of things that people think are in the Bible, but actually aren't.
Yeah. Well, the one that comes to my mind, the church that I used to go to a hot minute ago, around Christmas, the pastor would always remind everyone, like, you know, I love the drummer boy story. It did not happen. The drummer boy, like, that is a completely fictional, according to the canon of the Bible, that is a fictional tale.
Yeah.
So it's you know, our brains just embellish. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Or they're stories that are picked up from other places and we kind of just add them in.
Yeah.
Like, the embellishment does work as far as, like, I don't know that it was ever mentioned that Mary was on a donkey going to Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah.
It was an assumption that she had to get there somewhere and she was, like, 9 months pregnant.
Very heavily pregnant, so she wasn't walking the whole time.
God, I hope not.
Bless her soul.
And we went into the whole apple debacle in the last...
Yeah, the pumpkin of knowledge.
The pumpkin of knowledge from the Garden of Eden. But anyways, and when you bring up the drummer boy, all I can think of is having a newborn and this kid is like, let me play drums for them.
They're like,
Please no.
He's actually trying to sleep. We just got him to stop screaming. I need you to not do that.
That's where my brain goes.
Yes.
There's also possibly pagan roots
Sure.
for this. I don't want to get anyone upset or step on toes here, but a lot of Christian holidays have pagan roots.
Yeah.
Or they're smushed in. So, Christmas happening when it does is more closely linked to solstice and Saturnalia.
Yes.
My brain went Festivus. I'm like, no, that's Seinfeld. Saturnalia. Even Easter and stuff has some pagan origins.
Yeah. Halloween is technically a Christian holiday.
I would say All Saints Day and All Souls Days are more than Halloween itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could be wrong. Isn't Halloween more based on Salvian?
So I want to do an episode on this at some point to get a little more into it, but from what I remember of the research, I feel like I reference Morbid every single episode, and I'm so sorry. I listened to a lot of them. They did an episode on the origins of Halloween, and essentially it was Samhain is the pagan holiday. Christians came, or holy men came and saw the people that were practicing Samhain, and they were like, okay, we like certain bits of this, but we're going to change certain bits that we don't like, and we're going to turn it into this other holiday, which became known as Halloween. So
or All Hallows Eve, isn't it?
All Hallows Eve. Yeah. I want to do I need to do more research into it because it's really, really interesting to me. And I love all the different traditions, like Irish traditions and whatnot that surround it. But that's my very, very brief off the top of my head that I remember from the Morbid episode. Thank you, Ash and Elena.
I see what you're saying. I misunderstood you when you first said that. Of
oh no,
I thought you meant it was Christian first, and I'm like,
oh no.
I see what you mean now. Okay. A lot of holidays that Christians celebrate do have influences. The Christmas trees aren't anywhere in the Bible.
No,
they weren't really. Evergreens probably weren't much of a thing in that area.
No.
So anyways, back to this though. I'm kind of going on about Saturnalia. Where this legend might come from might be kind of tied to Saturnalia, which is a festival celebrated by the Romans. Think Latin,
Right.
Social roles were flip-flopped. So the masters would be serving the servants.
Gotcha.
So the idea of animals being able to talk would kind of fit into that.
Right.
Some of the other tales they're thinking might be Scandinavian or 12th century France. Looking at the different articles I looked at, I've come to the conclusion that no one actually knows, and they're probably just guessing.
Yeah, sure.
With many things with history.
Yeah, and especially if it was more an oral tale than a written down tale, which is
probably probably what happened.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so I know we've kind of been chatting throughout this. Do you have any thoughts or questions before I tell you a couple of stories or my condensed version of stories?
I don't think so. Currently, yeah.
So this sounds
interesting.
This sounds all nice and happy so far, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for tragedy here. Waiting on tenterhooks.
Your wait is almost over. This first story that I'm going to give a kind of brief synopsis. Think Cliff Notes for those of you who are old enough to remember that.
Yeah.
Or not Cliff Notes. Spark Notes for those of you who are old enough to remember that. Is from the Mental Floss article, and it's from Christmas Troll and other Yuletime stories. So this story comes from Brittany, France.
I've heard Brittany, France is actually really, really beautiful. I've heard it's a really pretty part of the country.
Do you know who is, what mythological figure was supposedly from there?
I do not.
It's your horse's namesake.
Smokey? Oh, Merlin! That was rough. I was like, what?
Smokey the Bear is from...
I was like, Smokey and the Band?
Merlin,
my Merp.
Supposedly from Brittany, France.
Oh, that's interesting.
Where I know that from, I think it's from the Myths and Legends podcast, and if I have that wrong, I'm very sorry.
It's okay. By the way, we should keep all of that in, because it was really funny. If you're okay with it.
That's fine. All right. So, this is about a dog and a cat.
Okay.
So, I'm just going to put my phone down and just go from my memory.
All right. All
right. So, this trigger warning, this is where we get dark. Trigger warning for animal abuse and murder.
Oh, we hate those things.
I'm smiling because it's uncomfortable.
We're uncomfortable, yeah.
All right. So, there is this dog and this cat. And unfortunately, they have not a great owner. I don't know when-ish this takes place. This
Okay.
wasn't in the story that I can remember.
Okay.
So, a cat and a dog, and they have a not good owner. From what I got from the story, the cat and the dog can talk to each other all year long,
Sure.
but the humans can't understand them.
Okay, makes sense.
So somehow this dog and this cat, whether they overheard something or it was just some kind of like mystical knowledge, knew that on Christmas Eve, a burglar was going to break into their human's house. And their human had been very abusive towards them. And so the dog and the cat were like, we know if this burglar breaks in and hears a person, they will kill them.
Dang.
So they were like, so let's wait until, we'll make ourselves kind of hidden, and we're going to make a sound from the human's room when the burglar breaks in.
Oh.
And this just so happened to coincide with it being midnight on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Or Christmas Day, technically, I guess.
Gotcha.
So they waited until their time was right. The burglar broke in, and the dog and cat, one of them, started speaking. And so the burglar came and, like, unalived, as the teens say, as the youth say.
As the youths.
The owner and the dog and the cat got their revenge.
I say the same thing that I say about John Wick. I'm not saying what they did was right. I'm just saying I get it.
So we're off to a fun start.
Yeah. Straight to animal abuse.
Yep, and to murder. This next one, we both have horses. So this one kind of unsettles me a little bit more.
Oh.
I don't think my horses would say mean things to me. But I think...
Yeah. Smokey might flip me off, to be fair. She's in her rude teenager stage right now. She's that age. She's literally a little teenager.
Minx would just sass me, I think. Stella would be like, hello, human.
Yeah. Hi, Mom.
But Minx would be like, oh.
It's your tech.
She likes me. I think she would just act like
she's a sassy friend.
Exasperated by me.
She's the sassy friend.
She's a sassy friend. All right, so this next tale, also from the Mental Floss article, comes from the German Alps. Once again, I don't quite have a timestamp on this. Once again, we have a trigger warning for death. So a farmhand heard about the legend of animals talking on Christmas Eve. I'm assuming they were pretty young because they're like, I'm going to hide in the stable and see if the animals talk to each other.
Right.
I could have been an adult, though. Who knows?
Who knows?
And so that's exactly what they did. They hid in the stable and they got exactly what they were hoping for, just not in the way they wanted to.
Oh, dear.
He overhears a conversation between two horses.
Okay.
In my brain, I assume they're mares because that's what I have, female horses, and I'd imagine female horses would gossip more than geldings.
Oh, yeah.
Male horses, but I could be wrong about that.
Geldings would just be, like, chilling with each other, being like, hi, guys, how you doing? Stallions would be jocks. They'd be out playing football. And mares would be, like, on the sidelines gossiping.
Okay, yeah, so we're on the same page there. So anyways, he overhears the horses tell of a servant's death by saying they'll have to carry him to his grave.
Oh.
And it goes into more detail on the actual story, but they're like, yeah, we'll be carrying so-and-so over to the church, but not bringing them back, and they'll be buried over there. Like, it was pretty, like, it wasn't big.
Yeah.
From what I remember. So that's a fun one.
I just get this image in my head because we're talking about mares. For anyone listening who doesn't know horses, mares are female horses. Geldings are male horses who essentially have been neutered for pet owners. I feel like that's a little more understandable. And stallions are an unneutered horse, so they can reproduce.
They tend to be jerks, too.
Yeah, they can be. Yes.
There's a lot of testosterone.
Yes, exactly. But I just get this image because mares there's like a saying that I really like, that it's like, you can tell a gelding, you can ask a stallion, but you have to have a full discussion with a mare, because they just have such personalities and we love them. But I just picture two mares knowing this servant is just hiding in a corner and they're like, this little fool's trying to listen in to us. We're going to give him something to listen to. And they're just completely making this story up to scare him.
Minx would do that.
Yeah.
And Stella would be like, she'd probably be oblivious.
She'd be like, what? Really?
She'd be like, what? She's like, that's gonna happen? Really?
Minx is like, yeah, Stella, get with it.
Like, I'm surrounded by idiots. Like the Scars thing from The Lion King.
Yes.
All right, anyways, I can see that. And then I'm going to talk about a more modern example.
Okay.
This is, like, I had mentioned earlier, a Christmas special called The Night the Animals Talked. This information I'm pulling from Mental Floss and Wiki, and I did watch it. So this was aired on ABC in December of 1970.
Mm-hmm.
It was focused on / inspired by an old Norwegian nativity tale.
Okay.
The animals are given the gift of speech to spread the message of Jesus' birth, but I guess no one tells them why they can talk. So suddenly they're just able to talk, and they're like,
you're like, what is happening?
Like, oh my goodness, we can make human sounds.
Oh.
And instead of like spreading the word, because once again, I don't think they know why they're talking.
Yeah.
First they start bickering and picking on each other.
Oh.
And then Joseph and Mary's donkey shows up, and they're like, yeah, you guys can't stay here, sorry.
You can't sit with us!
Basically.
Oh my god.
But then they do recognize the error of their ways.
Okay.
And they have a musical number. And they find the donkey and Mary and Joseph, and then Jesus is born in their barn. And then they're like all changed and like enamored by this miracle. So they run out to tell the world about it, but they start to lose the ability to speak as daylight sets in.
Okay.
So yeah, I watched it. It was vaguely familiar, so I'm guessing I must have seen it on like cable TV.
At some point.
Probably in the 90s, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of a religious The Last Unicorn, if you know what that movie is. I like that movie too, The Last Unicorn. I haven't watched that.
It's a good book too. It's a good novel.
I ever read the book.
I read it a couple years ago. It's pretty good.
But yeah, it was nice. I think it kind of was an allegory to the Night the Animals Talk, not the last unicorn, of humans choosing to bicker with each other instead of spreading the good news message.
Sure.
So yeah,
I like it.
There was also another story I came across that they didn't give a lot of information. It was just like on Christmas, bees singing in a choir.
Oh.
This is from a northern county of England in 1987. So very recent.
That is pretty recent, yeah.
I have questions like, why were bees out in December?
They had
in northern
scarves.
England.
Yeah. I feel like they would be very cute though. I like bees. I'm a weirdo.
I'm picturing them in little scarves now.
Yes, little scarves and like little hats.
What do you think they were singing? What's a good bee Christmas carol?
See, I'm not thinking. All I can picture now is Flight of the Bumblebees. And that's not a Christmas carol.
No, it's not.
That's probably their favorite song, though. I feel like this is a merch idea.
It would have to be something kind of fast.
Yeah.
Have you ever actually looked? You can read music, correct?
Yes. Slowly.
If Christmas carols weren't as familiar as they are, they would be obnoxiously hard.
Yeah.
Like, they really would be. I thought about that. My friend and I carol sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, even the melodies for some of them are jumpy and strange.
Sure.
Like, if they weren't popular.
Just so commonly sung. Do you think they would sing All I Want for Christmas Is You?
Oh, that'd be adorable. Or do you know, what's it called? It's fast and it's it's newer. By that I mean the last century. Haul out the holly, put up the tree before my spirit.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what it's called. Need a Little Christmas? Is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that.
We need a little Christmas
right this very minute.
Yeah.
Candles in the window, carols at the minute.
That's adorable. I want to draw this.
I could see bees doing that one.
Yeah.
I'll listen back and see how badly I sang that when I was trying to like
just try to get the melody out.
Might be called a New England Christmas or something like that.
Oh, okay.
We sang it when I was in high school for one of the Christmas concerts.
Oh, okay.
So our next one was also from the Lancaster Farmer, and it was a story of spider tinsel.
Ugh.
I don't really like spiders.
No. Like, I respect them because they do a lot for our planet. I don't like things that have more than 4 legs.
Yes! Okay.
Like, except for bees. Apparently I like bees and fireflies, but...
Have we had this conversation before? That
maybe.
Things with more than 4 legs freak me out.
Yeah. It's the way they move, man. I'm not even scared of getting bit. Like, it's the way they move. I can't... Ugh.
Snakes are fine.
Yeah.
I can do less than 4 legs.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't like things with more than 4 legs. Bees are okay. Fireflies are okay. Butterflies are okay.
But you don't really see their legs as much. Not like spiders. They're like all legs.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
Ugh.
So this...
Sorry, spiders. I hope you enjoy your Christmas too. I'm just scared of you.
As long as they keep their distance and I keep my distance.
Yeah.
I named the big ones in the barn. That way they're less scary.
To make you like, yes.
I named one Harold the one year.
Oh.
Spider tinsel.
Spider tinsel.
So the story on this is, like we said earlier, having Christmas trees in your house comes from more of like a pagan root or like a non-Christian root.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it goes back a couple hundred years.
Were they called Yule trees? I just was curious. I know there's Yule logs, but I don't actually know.
Does the Yule log have to come from a Christmas tree?
There's the deep questions.
Okay. Anyways.
We've gone off the rails. I'm sorry, guys.
I was already off the rails before we started before we started recording. Okay. It's the idea that, like, the idea of tinsel itself.
Okay.
So tinsel is the sparkly stuff that you have to keep away from cats so they don't eat it.
Yeah. Yes.
That goes on trees. I'm thinking because I haven't had a live Christmas tree in years because I'm allergic to them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever put tinsel on our trees.
I don't think we do. I mean, I don't have a live. We had a live tree once, but typically we have our artificial tree that we just put up. But I don't remember ever putting tinsel. Like when I was a little kid, I had my own like little Christmas tree, and I would put like all the sparkly stuff on it because you had to. But like I don't think I ever used like actual tinsel. Yeah.
I had tinsel in my hair recently.
Ooh, that's fun.
It was. But I think, can tinsel also be like when people like string up popcorn and stuff?
I think that's garland.
Garland, okay.
Yeah.
Tinsel is garland, but not all garland is tinsel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We figured that out.
You got it.
These are things I really should know.
Again, deep questions.
So anyways, tinsel, the shiny stuff that kind of keep away from cats so they don't eat it. So the spiders were like trying to decorate the trees, right?
Okay. And they put like web over it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm imagining this happening in like Germany a couple hundred years ago where people would put candles on Christmas trees, and that's so flammable. They're like, let's dress this up a little bit.
Oh.
So the spiders decided to put spider webs on the Christmas tree. And it's kind of like a Halloween tree at that point, actually.
It is kind of like a Halloween tree at that point.
And God was like, that's really nice, but I'm going to give it a little more razzle-dazzle.
Oh.
And then he turned the webs gold and silver.
Oh. I actually kind of like that story.
It
that
is.
makes me feel like less scared.
It's a nice spider story. Now, the spiders don't actually talk.
They do or do
they
not?
They don't, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
But they just participated.
Yeah. They're participating through mime.
They are. But according to the legend, God turned these drab webs into gold and silver that would befit a king, which is another biblical tie-in, right? Because Jesus being the Messiah.
Yeah. I also feel like the spiders would like that. Be like, yes. Thank you. Okay. See, I'm trying to bring it back around, spiders. I don't mean to bash on you guys.
Okay, one more tale is from a book called Christmas in Pennsylvania. Hey, we know about that state.
Hey!
By Alfred L. Shoemaker. There were definitely shoemakers that were in my hometown.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that's probably a pretty
I feel like
name.
That's a pretty
PA
Dutch name.
In this area, in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So this describes some of the Pennsylvania German folklore surrounding the birth of Jesus. You also hear called Pennsylvania Dutch, Deutsch meaning German.
German, right.
It's a lot of that in Pennsylvania. In this version, the talking animals mostly just relates to the cattle in the barn, and they're only talking between 11 p.m. and midnight on Christmas Eve. But not everyone can understand them. So, and this isn't like specifically at the time of Jesus' birth. This is just in general, Christmas Eve, cows in particular.
Okay. Sure.
Can speak between 11 and midnight. It's only for an hour. And people who were born at that same time are also able to understand them via this legend.
Fun. Okay. I like that. That's cool. These are interesting.
So I'm just going to do a couple of things that I thought was interesting in my research. Feel free to add any comments or ad-lib in here.
Will do.
The Mental Floss article that I've referenced quite a few times had a picture of a horse that was entitled Beware of Fortune-Telling Horses. And I just love that title. We're going to talk about the name of this episode, which is The Friendly Beasts, which is a Christmas hymn.
Okay.
So I'll show you.
Oh, yes, you have the book.
I have the book. At some point, I was given another one of these, too. These really nice illustrated Christmas carols and hymns and stuff.
That's cool.
There you go. So are you familiar with this hymn?
I am not.
The Friendly Beast is a Christmas hymn carol. I sang this a lot as a kid in church and completely forgot about it.
Oh.
Like, the one, I'm going to go, like, back in a vague recollection. The one year, like, the kids' choir, everyone had a solo, but there wasn't enough verses for that, so we just made up verses.
Oh.
And I think I wrote most of them.
Nice. That's cool.
I couldn't have been older than 10, but we still sang it.
I love it.
Every kid who wanted a solo got one.
Oh.
And there weren't enough verses.
Sure.
So this focuses on the connection each animal had to Jesus' birth. So, like, in the verses, the donkey is saying things, right? And, like, the donkey is telling his story of carrying Mary.
Okay.
The sheep is saying, like, hey, I gave him wool for a blanket.
Oh.
And the camel is, I brought him gifts from the wise men. And then the last verse is that all the animals were happy to tell of the gifts they gave to Jesus.
Okay.
It's very cute.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about it until looking at this.
That's cool, though.
This is
how it ties back in.
Yeah. It's a cute little Christmas carol. Like, I don't think you hear that often.
No, really you don't. I had never heard of it until this episode.
And I think it's like 14th century.
Oh, cool.
French, maybe?
Okay.
I mean, it's in English, the version I know. But
Right. But it descended from French origins.
This song supposedly, here it says right here, supposedly is connected to the French festival. Oh my goodness. Fête de l'An? I don't do French.
Yeah. That sounds correct to me. FETED'Lane. French listeners, if we have you out there, weigh in.
Fête de la, I don't know. I know half of the consonants in French aren't pronounced.
Right.
Or it's called the Feast of the, okay, I'm going to use the actual word for donkey here. So the Feast of the Ass in English.
Right.
The carol came from an early Latin hymn that was sang at the feast.
Mm-hmm.
The hymn was French origin, but Latin hymn.
Okay.
I love this part. The hymn was called Orientis Partibus Adventavit Asinus, or Hail, Sir Donkey, hail.
I'm obsessed.
Next time I see a donkey,
hail, Sir Donkey, hail.
Honestly, a better translation of that title is From the East a Donkey Comes.
Okay.
But I like Hail, Sir Donkey, hail better.
I enjoy that.
So I'll put a link in YouTube probably to the Friendly Beasts hymn and the song I just talked about, but we just listened to it. And the melodies aren't the same, but they're very similar. So you can tell that, like, one pretty much came from the other.
Right.
And then just another fun thing, the Oxford Dictionary Online defined the legend as a traditional story, sometimes popularly regarded as historical, but unauthenticated.
I love it.
I just like how they threw shade.
Yeah.
It's like, it's regarded as historical, but it's not.
It's regarded as.
Anyways. Okay. So before we get into the question, what are your wrap-up thoughts?
Honestly, I was just kind of absorbing everything, but it's a fun tale. Like, I'm sad about the dog and the cat.
Minus the murder and animal abuse?
Yes, minus the murder and animal abuse. It's interesting to hear the origins behind and, like, what we've, as humans, like, built off of that folklore. Like, the songs and, like, Annabelle's Wish, the movie, and I'm sure there's other...
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking there's something so intrinsic about, like, we have these connections to animals, but we don't speak the same language.
Right. And I think people who are very, very close to animals, like, feel like they oftentimes wish they could truly speak to them in ways. I mean, we've kind of learned, I feel like, if you're very, very close with, like, I'm gonna use myself as an example, like, with the horses, like, I've learned how to, like, read Smokey.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can read her in ways that my partner can't, because he cannot stand her. He and my pony, never the two shall be fond of one another. But for me, it's just like, oh, she's just acting this way because she wants attention. And, you know, there's ways that you can read an animal, but I can't speak to her like I'm speaking to you.
And I think that's a good point, right? And though, like you said, behavior. So I think more than 70% of communication is body language and behavior between humans, let alone animals.
Right.
So it's like, you can, to a point, you can kind of get a pretty good gist on what's going on if you know the animal well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, when your animal's not feeling good, it's like, man, I wish you could tell me what was wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I just want to...
But like even like taking my dog to the groomer, I know the groomer is really good. They're not going to hurt her,
Right.
but she still gets nervous.
She's so scared.
Yeah. Would you want to hear the animals talk on Christmas Eve?
I think at least once, yes. Just to hear it. Like, I think even I feel like down my doodle doodle would be very nice to me.
Roxy
He'd be like, Mom!
Roxy would cuss me out.
The Schnauzer goddess.
She'd be like, "You are the spare human."
No.
No, my dog does like me, I think.
Yes, I think
she's very, very sassy.
She is very sassy.
She learned from the horses.
You have to say you have sassy animals.
I do have sassy. I have all female animals.
Stella would be like, "Hi, Mom. I love you.
Like, you're my favorite."
I love you.
And Minx would be like, "I guess I tolerate you."
You're like, "You got a treat."
You do feed me.
You do, yeah.
You take me fun places. I get on that weird bus. I get on that weird rectangular thing, and then I like teleport somewhere else, and I get off, and I'm no longer where I was. But
it's pretty interesting. I'll give you that.
You always put me in there with these geldings.
I really wish I could hear that. I'm gonna bring it to a place of sad. Sorry, guys. I really wish I could hear Merlin talk.
Aww. So I think a cool thing about this folklore is like how long it's lasted, and it just, like you said, it keeps adapting and it keeps going. This is very similar to my Black Eyed Kids answer.
Yeah.
Now that I think about that, actually.
Sure.
Because this has kept evolving. It's a folklore that has the Black Eyed Kids didn't have an ancient root, but it's really cool how folklore can evolve as time goes on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, are we ready for questions, my friend?
I am. So, what drew you to this topic?
So, I wanted to do a Christmas episode. First off, because generally my episodes hit the end of the month, and
okay, cool.
This episode's going to be very close to Christmas then.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do a Christmas/holiday episode that was spooky, but not too spooky. But I got a little bit more darkness than I bargained for.
Yeah. Did this episode change your view on the topic?
Say it expanded it. I didn't know a whole lot more than like, oh, that's so cool. Animals, there's a legend animals can talk. And what brought this to my attention was I listen to a lot of podcasts and they vary. So I have like spooky ones, like we're always shouting out like Morbid and Believing the Bizarre.
Yes.
But I listen to ones about like music production, and I listen to ones about like psychology and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I also listen to some equine ones because we are both horse people. And there's this one that's through like Horses Illustrated.
Oh, cool.
Like, I think it's called Barn Banter.
Oh,
and
that's cute.
One of the guests they had on had talked about that legend because it was like a Christmas episode.
Oh, cool.
That I was listening to and like probably like, well, that'd be a cool episode for our podcast.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What was the strangest part about this topic or research?
How creepy some of the stories are.
Yeah.
Like it's like it went right to murder.
Straight to murder.
Straight to murder.
It's Moira.
And
right. We're John Wicking it in here. I'm not saying what you did was right. Just saying I get it.
I started reading those stories and like, well, this is not what I was expecting, but
what's going on?
I'm not stopping now.
Please weigh in your thoughts on the episodes. You can comment directly on Spotify episodes, or you can leave a review on Spotify, or you can review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. We're on both platforms. You can find us on Instagram, or you can find us at Gmail at somethingstrangepod24@gmail.com.
Also, if you like it, tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. And please seriously contact us. Give us episode ideas. Tell us what you think. We want to hear from you. We want to have fun with you.
Yes. Tell us if you've ever heard animals speaking at Christmas Eve on midnight, and did they tell of your impending doom or not? Do they talk about other things? Like,
hopefully they did not tell you of your impending doom, and they just told you how much they loved your Christmas turkey. If you shared your Christmas turkey with them.
I just imagine with a horse, and I'm like, although like if I could only talk an hour or whatever of a year, I don't know what I'd say.
Yeah, that's true, because it'd be like there's just so much. Like I feel like I'd just be like, I love you so much. You need to understand me. I love you so much. You don't even know. I love you.
The only thing I could compare it to is if I ever got the chance to meet like a band that I liked. Like, if I got a chance to talk to Bastille or Fall Out Boy, I'd be like, I don't know.
Me meeting David Tennant a couple years ago, I 100% get that.
It's like, I want to play it cool, but also, I love you. I love you guys.
Yes. Well, strangers, it's time for us to part ways.
Until we meet again, beware of fortune-telling horses.
We'll be back again soon with another
Something Strange.